Chamber of Commerce Italy trip to Tuscany this fall, October 11th. This is our informational meeting. And just as we get started, I have to say, there is no more enchanting or popular destination for chamber travel. And, show of hands, who here in the audience has been on a chamber trip before? Okay, about half. For more than 40 years, the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce has been organizing trips abroad. We work with a specialized travel agency that just works with chambers of commerce. And the trips are very well put together so that safety and a cultural experience is really made a priority. And not to mention to make sure that the trip and the travel is affordable, all important priorities. So with that, we happen to have a very special guest with us. I was saying to some of you that were here earlier, one of the only true-blooded Italians that I truly know, and that's our very own chief of police for the city of Salinas, Roberto Felice. So I was wanted to bring him up, and he said, I'd be willing to say a few words. Yeah.
Born and raised in Italy, so I'm really happy that you guys are going there.
Oh, no.
You're gonna have a wonderful time. I gotta say, Italian people are great. They're warm, friendly, good looking. So you get it all. You truly get it all. I don't know exactly where you're going. Steve was telling me that. Well, you're going to Tuscany and then Rome, Venice, or no? Just yes, maybe. Tuscany, obviously, it's a beautiful area. Excellent for wine. I see you got wine there, so you're gonna enjoy the wine. Piece of advice: if you guys go out to dinner, unlike the United States, ask for the house wine, because the house wine in Italy, it's actually the best you're gonna get because you represent the house. So definitely drink a lot of it. I still know a few cops in Italy, so if you get in trouble, call me, get you out of there. But okay, aside, I'm sure you're gonna have a wonderful, wonderful time, and I can't wait until you guys come back. I want to hear all the good stories. And even the also all gonna be good stories. So definitely enjoy yourself. And if I can be of assistance to any of you, obviously I have my whole family in Italy. So let me know anything that I can do. Steve has access to me, and I make myself available. So you guys, as we say in Italy, buon viaggio e buon divertimento.
Buon viaggio.
Our chief is so committed, as our department and our officers, to community policing. And when he learned that we were going to Italy, he was like, oh, this is going to just be marvelous. So one more round of applause for our chief. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, so just as a means of introduction, again, the Chamber of Commerce has been doing this travel for over 40 years, more than 80 trips at this point, and it's just fantastic that we can continue the tradition, certainly post-COVID, and now things have officially opened up. And in the last year and a half, my wife and I have been to Rome. We loved it. There's nothing like the culture and the experience of Italy. We have a lot of people that are joining us online, which is great, and we have a professional tour operator that'll give us a little bit more background. But in doing some research about Italy and the destinations we're going to get to experience, certainly Italy is about the size of California. There's about twice as many people and a whole heck of a lot deeper and richer history. 5 facts about Italy. Rome is over 2,000 years old. The country was under dictatorship for 20 years. And in that sense, it's one of Western Europe's youngest countries in that sense. The last king ruled for just 36 days, and more than 1 million travelers will visit Rome any given year. 13 of Shakespeare's 38 plays were featured in Italy. So truly fantastic. We have chosen the most popular destination, certainly one of the most popular, if not iconic destinations in Tuscany. Come on in. Sure. Tuscany is a transitional region occupying one of the most beautiful parts of Italy, certainly famous for Chianti and the rolling hills that so many of us have seen in a lot of movies. Life is Beautiful, The Gladiator, Under the Tuscan Sun, if some people have seen that movie. So many homes and so many influences in our own region are really based on that Italian heritage. In fact, I have to say the Chianti district in Tuscany is truly in the heart and one of the most famous for more than 600 years, some of the best wines in Italy come from that region. So as part of the trip, we will see it. And then, as was mentioned, a pre-trip to Rome. Rome is a magnificent city. There's about 3.5 million people that live in Rome. Terrific history. Rome has more fountains than any other place on the planet. Some other things that are unique about Rome. Cats have special rights in Rome. The Pantheon is the only ancient building in pristine condition. So much of Rome has been built, rebuilt, built on top of one another. And it's technically the capital of two countries, given the Vatican and the special role that the Vatican plays in Rome. Oh, and by the way, the Spanish Steps are not really Spanish. You'll learn more about that if you decide to go on the Rome pre-trip. Venice, I've been to Venice, and Venice is an amazing city, unique to the world because of the fact that it's built on 118 small islands. It's a very old city with a lot of canals, as so many of us have seen or come to appreciate. Marshy lagoons that have been converted. Some interesting facts about Venice. Known for bridges, over 400 bridges, and more than 70 are private, often leading to private homes or retreats. There's no real addresses in Venice, so even the post carriers get lost. So it's one of those cities that you're 1 block or 2 blocks off, St. Mark's Square, and you can't find your way back, which could be a good thing. 350 gondolas. Hundreds of years old, and a tradition that's been passed on. And many of the gondola, call it captains, are dying. So it's a unique culture and tradition that's slowly disappearing. I could go on, but again, one of the most iconic and beautiful parts of Italy. So with that, again, chamber travel has occurred for many years. We have contracted with Chamber Discoveries. We have Chris Bro with us today, and he's going to give a presentation, if you want to transition it, on the screen. And Chris can introduce himself and give a little bit of background. We'll go through the presentation, and then depending on how we're doing with Q&A and timing, I think it would be cool for everybody to introduce themselves. That would be neat too. So with that, I just want to say welcome, Chris, and thank you for joining us at the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce. We've been working with Chamber Discoveries for decades at this point. You just have a great reputation, and I know you'll take good care of us. So we'll turn the floor over to you for your presentation.
Well, great. Gosh, thank you for the kind words, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. The presentation here is really, and Steve mentioned the rolling hills of Tuscany. I don't know if you can see them behind me. But I saw somebody have their background. I said, oh my gosh, I think I have Tuscany. So anyway, that inspired me. But this presentation is really meant to kind of take us day by day through the trip, what we're going to do, what we're going to see. I've been with the company now for, going on 16 years. And I've actually been lucky enough to have gone on this trip to Tuscany. 2 times, and 3 times if you count the 3rd time it was more of a visit. But that said, what I'm going to ask is if everybody can mute their microphones, it'll be helpful, I think, for everybody. And
I think
here, let me. Okay. Here, let me try to mute this here. If I can do it.
Chris, you can unmute. We had another computer going in the background. We just killed it. Should be
okay. Great. Well, okay. There, I've just muted everyone, and I hope that will fix it. And please just, if, if there's a question or anything that comes up, I'm, I'll do whatever I can, of course, to help answer and kind of give you guys the straight scoop. The trip itself, like Steve said, it's fantastic. You've got really a choice to come visit Rome first, and before we head up to Tuscany, and we'll talk about the pre-trip and the post-trip hereafter. Right now, this is really going to go through just kind of our trip to Tuscany here. And the nice thing about this trip and specifically this package is, you have all your taxes, all your fuel charges, all your airline, your round trip flight from San Francisco, all that stuff all included. In addition to that, there's going to be guides there meeting you at the airport to bring you home. But this map here and bring you home to the airport or to your hotel. I mean, here we got some people coming in. But this map, just to kind of show you just kind of an idea of where we're going and what we're doing. Montecatini is where we're going to be, and that's really going to kind of be our hub. It's really a fantastic little city. It's really considered kind of the spa town of Tuscany. But when we fly into Tuscany, these are for those of us that are not going to Rome. For those of us that are just going to fly into Tuscany, we're going to fly into Florence, and from there you're going to be met by your tour guide. It's really right outside of the customs area at the airport there in Florence. They're going to have a sign that says Chamber Discoveries. There's going to be a motor coach outside the airport there waiting for you. From there, with your tour manager, of course, here's guys are on the Arno River there, but in Florence. But you're going to head to Montecatini. This is roughly, just to give you an idea, if I remember right, about 40 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes from the airport to Montecatini. So it's not like right around the corner, but it's not terribly far either. This shot here is actually of Montecatini Alto, and this here is the town of Montecatini Terme. So you've got where your hotel is in Montecatini Terme. And Montecatini Terme is this town that has a lot of restaurants. It's got spas. This spa here is actually across the street from the hotel or one of the hotels that we use. But there's a lot of spas like this all around town with a lot of restaurants and things to do. It's actually a really cool little spot. You've got the Hotel Tutuzio here. That's very close. This is what I said, kind of right across the street from there is one of the spas. We also use the Da Vinci Hotel there as well. This is just kind of a block over. But really, you're going to come in, get situated that first day in Montecatini, and then that's going to be your day. Your guide's, of course, going to be there with you. But get comfortable, get situated in your hotel, unpack your suitcase, get comfortable, because that's really going to be home base for the next 7 nights. Then that next morning, after breakfast, we head out and we're going to go to Pisa. Pisa is about an hour from Montecatini. And we're going to head over to Pisa, basically staying there. It would basically be that morning. You're going to get there that morning and kind of stay through lunch. When I was there, I took this. I was there in November, and it was. But I actually took this from the top of the Leaning Tower, of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The first time that I was there, quite honestly, I was really excited to see the Leaning Tower. My gosh, I've seen pictures of that my whole life. I wanted to go see that. And after going there, the cathedral and the baptistry were equally impressive. In fact, the baptistry was my favorite, just personally. But you've got the Leaning Tower, then of course the baptistry. So the tour of Pisa is really only a few hours. Then you have some free time in Pisa too. The reason why it's only a few hours is honestly there's other than this in Pisa, there's not much to do or see. So we want to see what's important and then really kind of make, the best use of our time. There's definitely time in Pisa to have lunch. Our guide took us to some little hole in the wall restaurant. We would have never found it. But I mean, I still talk about it. I mean, I'm talking about it right now, but we had some of the best lasagna in my life at that place. And it was fantastic. And so that's kind of partly why, you're going to have a tour guide with you every step of the way, to know where the best places to eat, kind of what you're in the mood for. They can kind of point you to a good place. Of course, Italian coffee. We know the differences. We drink a full cup of Italian coffee and you'll be up for 3 days. It's some strong stuff. But there is that afternoon, there's an optional tour. Basically what happens is Luca is literally on the way back to Montecatini, like off of the road from Montecatini, or excuse me, from Pisa to Montecatini. So what'll happen is the bus is going to come for those, I think it's like $50 or something like that, thereabouts, and spend basically the rest of the day in Lucca. The bus with the tour guide is going to drop you off. You're going to stay in Lucca for the rest of that afternoon. The rest of us are going to stay on the bus and we're going to continue on and basically spend the rest of the afternoon in Montecatini. Go to a spa or go to a restaurant or something. But if you want, stay in Lucca, because then getting home, what'll happen is you'll actually take the train. There's, train tickets will be included and stuff, of course, but the train station and to get to Montecatini from Lucca is actually, like, if I remember right, 2 stops. It's on the same train. So my point is, it's a very short ride. It's kind of fun and it's very easy. But anyway, that afternoon in Lucca, one little quick thing about Lucca, it's one of the only it's one of the only cities that you can go to on this trip that's got its medieval walls completely intact. So it's completely surrounded. And our guide kind of told us and tried to explain to us that this was around the walls was like a moat after that. And then anyway, it was interesting how they defended themselves, back in the day. But like when you go to places like Florence, for example, like the next day when we go, you'll see some of that medieval walls in Pisa too. It's actually been like removed and taken down to allow for the city to expand. So Florence, we're going to spend all day in Florence. We're going to come in. Basically, well, you can see that kind of the view over the river. And the Florence this day, of course, it's the birth of the Renaissance. That whole period, you got Leonardo, that was such a inspirational figure during that time. Of course, Michelangelo, he was actually from Florence. He's buried in Florence. We'll see his tomb. Along with Galileo, Dante, they're all actually buried in the same church together. But you've got the Duomo. It's the 4th largest church in the world. This is in Florence. Remember, this day, if this is going to be, we're going to be walking kind of around the city, because we have to keep in mind, in Florence, where we're going to be walking, they don't allow tour buses. So, it isn't like the tour bus is going to drive you from this church here to the Ponte Vecchio Bridge to wherever, right? We're going to be walking around Florence. So just so we all kind of know what the day is going to be like. When I was there, this is a horrible picture off an old cell phone, but it doesn't do it justice, because this next picture is what I was trying to get. And this is the dome, the inside of the dome in Florence. I mean, it's amazing. It I think rivals the Sistine Chapel in a way, but the Sistine Chapel is still probably the most amazing. You've got outside of the Duomo though that you're going to see, but the bell tower, I mean, you know, when I was there last, there were some scaffolding up, but just look at how big this church is. It was like, I mean, bigger than a city block. It was huge. I couldn't wrap my head around it the first time I was there. Well, excuse me. You've got you've got the Domo there, you're facing it. Then if you do an about face, kind of turn around, you've got the baptistry that's right behind you. And these doors take you into the baptistry. They don't use these doors anymore. At night, this gate raises up like 10 feet so to protect it from vandals. But these are basically gold inlay doors, and Michelangelo called them the gates of paradise. And you know, your guide will talk about each little box there represents a scene out of the Bible. It was, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember all of them. But anyway, kind of moving through though Florence, you know, you're gonna have some free time there as well. Certainly, we're gonna go into the Santa Croce. This is like their old church here, and this is where Galileo, Michelangelo, and Dante are all buried. This is Michelangelo's tomb here. Right next door, but just kind of next to it, I should say, is I believe it was Galileo, and then on the other side you had Dante, along with like 6 other really important guys. I don't personally remember them. But anyway, fantastic. This is basically our time in Florence. And you're going to have this tour takes you through, basically spends about half of the day touring Florence. So what's really important is then you have a lot of free time in Florence too. If you want to go in and see the David, or go into the different galleries or something, there's definitely time to do that. So just to kind of point that out. This following day, kind of coming back, that following day again after breakfast, we're going to head out again, and this is basically a choice. Some people, this is an optional tour that you can take, and we're going to head out to Cinque Terre. This is on the coast. It's actually Cinque Terre is actually it's like 5 different little villages all along the coastline, and we're going to visit all of them. And kind of making a way kind of down the Italian Rivieras, so to speak. But this is an all-day tour. We're going to be gone. We'll leave in the morning after breakfast, and we won't get back until that evening. You're definitely going to plan on eating lunch in one of these towns. That's what the plan would be. But you're definitely going to be gone all day, and the tour, like I said, is going to take you through each of these little towns. It's pretty cool, the little harbors and how the towns come to the water. Italy's a special place. It really is. Personally, this day was probably my favorite day. This day is we actually go out, and we call it under the Tuscan sun, but this is when we go wine tasting. And we're going to go to San Gimignano. And San Gimignano is, I mentioned, a medieval city that's had their medieval walls still intact. That's the other city that is still has its medieval walls, completely intact. So it's kind of neat when you walk through it. There's only 2 ways in and out of the city. So it's kind of neat. But that said, you're going to spend that morning and kind of into that early afternoon in San Gimignano. It's going to take you, your tour is going to kind of take you around the city. This guy, I had to get a picture of him, because this guy in the middle, he's the owner of this gelato cafe, restaurant, whatever you want to call it. And he had on the wall next to him that you can't see all these pictures of American actors and actresses. And it was all of these American actors and actresses that have been through his gelato shop. And he's got pictures of all of them. So anyway, it's you can't miss it. It's in the town square of San Gimignano, but it's a really, great, really kind of famous little gelato restaurant cafe area. So be sure to check it out. But that afternoon, we're going to leave. And honestly, it's a short drive because San Gimignano sits at the end of the Chianti wine valley. So it's a short drive to the winery that you're going to go to taste wines. We're going to go and basically go wine tasting. They're going to pair it with different meats and cheeses, and we'll have some bread. And anyway, they take you kind of around the farm and you learn about the grapes, and then you get to sample a lot of great wine. Like I said, it was my favorite day. And we just had a lot of fun. And learned a lot about wine, and all I can say is that it's all good. All of the wine over there is good. I didn't have a bad glass. Oops. Let me back up. Sorry. There you do have on day 7. There's basically an optional day. You really have a choice. You can hang out in Montecatini. You can take a train to Florence or Pisa or Lucca or wherever you want. Kind of get out or go to the spa, go to the restaurant, whatever you want. There is though an optional tour that we're going to take over to Modena. It's actually about an hour and a half away. It's to the Enzo Ferrari Museum, and this is we're going to be getting my team actually is working on the details right now, and we should have something, I'm guessing, in the next week or so, with pricing and exactly kind of what that tour is going to look like. But this would be an all-day thing. This would include lunch, and you would be out there, and you'd have a tour through the museum, tour the cars, and that's the idea. But it's going to be, think of it as an all-day tour. So again, this is an optional tour though, and there's going to be, the details are coming shortly. But that following day, again, you have a choice, and you can head out to Siena. Personally, this was, if you do any of the optional tours, I personally really like Siena. I thought it was incredible. I didn't realize that the Bank of America started from the Bank of Italy, which started in Siena, and the whole point of lending with interest started in Siena. And who knew, right? But the day is really going to be spent in Siena. Siena is about an hour and 15 minutes away or so it's not terribly far. And the time really is going to be spent. Your whole day is really going to be spent in Siena. There's going to be some free time, much like in Florence as well. An interesting kind of thing that our guide told us, and I thought I should just share it with you. But the Duomo of Siena, when it was being built, it was, the people of Siena were fully intent that it was going to be larger than St. Peter's in Rome, and it was going to be the largest church, basically, in Italy. And the Pope told the people in Siena, don't build a church bigger than mine, basically, in Rome. And well, the people of Siena said, hey, the heck with you, we're going to do it. Well, they were almost finished, and you can see on the right side of this picture, there's a wing that's being started that never got finished. And the bubonic plague hit Europe at that time. And Siena got hit really bad. The people of Siena thought that because they disobeyed the Pope, this is what happens when you disobey the Pope. And anyway, it's so interesting to kind of get inside the minds of what folks were thinking and what they were feeling, back then. And from the Duomo, to short walk, we're going to go to the Piazza del Campo there. But this is basically Siena's big square. And this is, well, here, let me just back up. So from about there, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but right below where that tower gets white, is I, climbed up the stairs and took this picture. And there's all of these places have restaurants. I mean, there's a zillion great places to eat. And what I was so impressed with is in this square, like 2 doors from there. But anyway, was in this square was I walked into this dessert place because I'm a sucker for sugar and sweets. I got a sweet tooth. And I saw this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta take a picture of this. This is incredible. I mean, and this is this is what's there. And I was thoroughly impressed, let me tell you. The Italians know how to do it. That night, that's basically gonna be, we're gonna come back, have our last night. There's gonna be basically kind of a big Tuscan feast there that night at your hotel. And I, excuse me, I forgot to mention, but there are 3 other dinners that are also included as well for your time in Tuscany. Total amount of, you're going to have breakfast every day and then 4 dinners that are included during your time in Tuscany. And then basically we really kind of have a choice. Some of us will fly back home from Florence, and then some of us will take the extension and we'll continue on to Venice, and where we'll spend another 3 nights. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, we're going to talk about the free trip to Rome. For those that want to go to Rome, we would actually come in Rome early. So you would fly out on the 7th, and landing in Rome on, of course, on the 8th. So you'd have those 3 nights there in Rome. And your time in Rome is going to take you through the city, basically a city tour, and they're going to take you, of course, to the Colosseum. You've got the Piazza Vienza there, which is basically kind of right in front of the Roman Forum. You've got the Spanish Steps, which Steve is right, they're not Spanish, but actually there's a really cool story behind it. Then of course you've got the Roman Forum, and then we will stop and see the Vatican. But the reason why it says optional there is because there is one of the days there's an optional tour to go to it's basically the Vatican Museum. And if we want to see the Sistine Chapel, we all have to, as a general public, have to go through the Vatican Museum. And the tour through the museum it's incredible. They have so many pieces of art and amazing frescoes, and I mean it's amazing. And but it's an optional tour. Excuse me, that really kind of takes, to be fair, this tour through the Vatican Museum is, can be like 4 to 5 hours. It's very long. It's incredible how much they have, and so the tour takes a while to get through. But it ends in the Sistine Chapel, and it truly is jaw-dropping. I've only seen it twice, but every time I do, I can't believe it. Michelangelo ran away and hid. He hated this so much. He ran away and hid from the Pope doing this. And the Pope sent a posse from Rome after him, found him in Florence, brought him back, and made him finish this. I mean, so just the fact that he did this against his will, and it's one of the most incredible works of art in the world, is just, it boggles the mind. But so really that's those 3 nights. So what would happen is you would come in, have those 3 nights in Rome, and then take from there, have transportation from Rome, up to Montecatini. The extension though, and this is now, we're leaving Montecatini, and some of us are flying home from Florence, and some of us are continuing on. We're going to take a bus, and we'll head up to Venice. This is roughly about a 3 to 3.5 hour bus ride. The one thing I want to point out is your hotel, guys, you weren't staying in Mestre. You are staying on the island. They call it the island, but as Steve mentioned, it's a whole bunch of little islands all put together. But your you're not staying on outside of the city center or Venice proper, so to speak. And that's really important. So you're staying right where you'll be able to walk out of your hotel and cross a bridge and off you go. But your time in Venice, of course, includes a tour of the city. You're going to go to St. Mark's Square, go to the Basilica, you know, really kind of be taken all over the city. Of course, we saw the bridge. It also, there is a gondola ride that's also included. I didn't realize it, but a lot of the gondola guys are they're unionized now, and so it's anyway, it's a good thing. But again, your tour and your time in Venice, 3 nights in Venice, you know, city tour of the city, and of course also the gondola ride. You've got St. Mark's Square there, or St. Mark's, I should say. But, you know, I know I went through it pretty quickly here, but I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna end this and just get the, whoops, let me get this. Here we go. Okay. So this is the brochure here. And just to kind of go through it here. So $33.99. That's for anybody who signs up before the end of the month, basically. You know, before March 31st. Anybody who signs up, and those rates I should mention are double occupancy. Okay, so those would be anybody signing up before March 31st. The trip would be $33.99. To do that, you don't need to pay for the whole trip in full right up front or anything like that. It's a $450 deposit per person. From there, then here on June 3rd, the final payments then would be due or thereabout. So, you know, you sign up now, and there's a few months basically until final payment would be due. Okay, so in case you were wondering, one thing I just want to mention, and B, because I think it's important, we have insurance here that's available for folks. This is traveler's insurance. We're going to talk about kind of this optional insurance and then also what's included. Okay, so this optional coverage is going to cover, and it's really for cancellation coverage. You have 2 choices here. You have a cancel for any reason coverage, which literally means, of course, you can cancel for any reason. And that insurance policy is it's just very expensive. The premiums are much higher than the traditional, you know, the travel guard trip cancellation coverage. That would be your more traditional policy where you can't cancel for any reason, but what you can cancel for is like if you get sick, if a family member gets sick, if something major happens at work, something major happens in life, you know, that you can't go, that's a foreseeable reason to cancel. You can't just cancel because you have a bad hair day, you know, but the premiums are much better. So those are you have 2 different really choices for cancellation coverage. I just want to also say that folks, y'all can get your own insurance and use your own insurance provider. You do not need to use the only 2 policies that we provide. Okay, if you have a long relationship that you've been using with your insurance provider and they can do that, great. One thing I should also point out is that if you plan to pay with this trip with a credit card, which I would encourage you all to do, you know, there's no extra fees, no extra charges to do that. And then oftentimes your credit cards will give you insurance protections and give you your own, you know, protection as well. So that said, I want to point that out, but also, and I know I'm going fast, but I'm just going to click on this here because this is our online reservation form page. And I want to point out something that it says here, because in case y'all read something or saw something, it talks about this insurance and how it talks about it comes with a complimentary insurance package. And it does. At no extra charge or at no extra cost do any of you have to pay, and all of you are going to be enrolled in what's called this post-departure insurance coverage. It does not cover you in case you have to cancel the trip. Okay, you aren't going to get any money back with this insurance policy. But what this complimentary policy does do is cover you in case you get hurt or sick while you're over there, if your trip gets delayed or canceled somehow, or if your bag gets lost or delayed. I mean, you have baggage claim, like all of that. There's that complimentary insurance policy for you all. And so if y'all were looking at this, I wanted to point that out. That's the difference. This complimentary policy is what's considered to be a post-departure coverage, and the other policies that we just talked about are more for cancellation. So that said, this online reservation is really helpful. It has a lot of good information. It's got your Venice post tour, the Rome post tour, your Siena optional tour, Cinque Terre, all of it. And so you have a lot of, there's a lot of good information here that y'all can, use. Keep in mind here, this rate does not reflect the discounts. And when you go through the booking process, the discounts will be reflected at the end when you have to put in your payment information. So just for what it's worth. I know I've been talking probably too much now. Are there any questions for me or about the trip, about the itinerary, what y'all can expect? Is there anything that I can elaborate on?
Well, let me just say thank you, Chris. Let's give him a round of applause. And I know there'll be a few hands online. We'll start in the auditorium first, and then we'll go back to everybody else, so to speak. But I just want to just say a few quick things. This is such a great time to travel. It really is. This time of year is a great time to travel. The fall is not a busy time of year. You'll find that pricing and availability in hotels and spas is a little bit more conducive to a budget. It's also not as hot, not nearly as hot as, say, July, which I think is good. I also want to say, for anybody that's in the room that's never traveled with the Chamber before, boy, the friendships and the memories are incredible. Whether it's a sudden downpour or a terrific hospitality or dinner or coffee that's picked up among new friends. So I just want to really highlight that. I also want to cover that some people may be worried about accessibility. I've been to over 80 countries, and I've traveled for 25 years with my dad. My dad in the last 10 years has had to deal with a stroke. So it's a wheelchair or a travel chair. Chris has already been answering questions about accessibility. So offline or even tonight, we can answer some of those questions about accessibility. I just want to compliment Chamber Discoveries on the flexibility of the itinerary. As you can tell, for those of you that are aggressive and want to be up every day and get the most out of Italy, you can do that. But then there's also the flexibility that you'll have a down day and you can sleep in and go have a coffee and maybe just chill. So I think that's just really, really helpful. I'm really excited that the host trip in Venice is on the island. That's terrific. A lot of the tours that we looked at, and as a chamber, we got 7 bids. This was the best bid overall. Best value. We really looked closely, and we're really excited about this. And I just have to say, from my visit to the Vatican a year and a half ago, the Vatican Museum and the new improvements they've made are incredible. And traveling again at this time of year is awesome. My wife and I were there in the fall. There were no lines. It was just delightful. So with that bit of commentary, I'll let Chris, if you want to add, and then we'll go to the auditorium, and then we'll go online for any kind of questions. Chris?
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to say that right now, in case folks were wondering, there aren't any COVID restrictions or vaccination requirements or or anything like that. So in case that was a concern or a question for folks, just get that out there, that there, again, vaccine cards, vaccine proof, anything like that isn't needed to travel. So
Okay, thank you. So let's start in the auditorium here. Yeah, raise your hand and I'll repeat the question. Sure. Eileen.
Hi. The quote is from San Francisco. My daughter wants to join me from the East Coast. Is there an adjustment for that? For her airfare will probably be different than that airfare from San Francisco.
Okay, so just repeating the question for the people on Zoom. The quote is out of San Francisco. What about guests traveling from, say, New York or Colorado or other places? So, Chris, can you speak to that in any capacity?
yeah, I'll certainly try my best. Yes, ma'am, they can, and folks could travel from whatever airport she's at, and yes, there would be a difference. What that is exactly, I couldn't tell you. But yes, ma'am, they could certainly fly from a different airport, and what would normally happen in that situation is more than likely from the East Coast, they would meet you in Italy, unless you requested otherwise. So that's they would meet the group there, in other words.
Chris has been terrific at answering questions like that offline via email and getting a specific quote. Like here's what the supplement would be. And yeah, it hasn't been outrageous. So I think it depends on the departing city. And Chris, maybe
Right.
offline, if you send me an email or even send Chris an email directly, either way,
Yeah.
we can let you know.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Sure, right here. And introduce yourself and that. All right. So much.
So I have a kind of dilemma, and I'm not so sure my the friends will go with me. So if that the single person, that would be a deaf
Yeah.
or there's somebody else or is going along. So it would like
Yeah.
to go.
So I'm so glad you've asked that, Elizabeth. So the single supplement is $700 and you guys can meet here tonight. And for those that have traveled before, that's happened before, a lifelong friendship. So we welcome that. We can help facilitate that. So yes, good. Yep. Ooh.
Is there something like that or after?
So Chris and I talked a lot about this because there was interest in Venice, but then there was interest in Rome. And what Chris has agreed to do is work with another chamber of commerce. So there's a couple of them. I think there's enough interest with Venice where we'll have a group of about maybe 8 or 10, looks like around 10. But the pre-Rome, depending on response, maybe with another chamber partnering. And Chris, correct me, is it 10 for the minimum?
Yep, I believe so. And like you said, yes, Steve, y'all would be, there would be a chance that you'd be traveling with another chamber. Say like if you had 10 or so, then yes, you would be traveling with another chamber.
Okay, so 10, and if it's less than that, we'll coordinate with another chamber. If there's no interest, then obviously, or very minimal interest, we just wouldn't proceed. So we'll work on that. So definitely express your interest and we'll work with you. Great, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Can I add to that, Steve?
Yep.
Really quickly, just so folks know, y'all can extend or customize your trip on the front or the back end in any way you want. If y'all don't want to go to Rome or go to Venice, but maybe you want to go to Paris for a week before and then come in, or you want to go to Athens and then whatever. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but my point is you can customize your trip on the front or the back end of the trip. And after you make your reservation, you would ask there'd be a piece of paper you'd fill out. Our operations department would look at options for you, give you those options, and then you could say yes or no to it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah.
And because we've already been working with travelers offline that want to go to Paris and visit family. So, that's the best part about Chamber Discoveries. Like, they have been so quick to respond. And some of us in the room that have traveled before know that some of the operators, maybe it takes a few days. So he is extremely quick, and you've just done a terrific job. So we'll keep going with anybody else in the room. Did you have one more, Elizabeth?
To London. Isn't it London? Then it was from here to Florida.
Yeah, I think we have it SFO Rome, Florence. Is that right? Do you know the flight pattern, Chris?
Yeah, it would be, well, okay, so,
For the main trip.
for the main trip, it would be SFO and then into Florence. More than likely, you would connect in. When I did it, I connected in, well, both Paris. I connected once, and then the other time we connected in Frankfurt. So
There you go.
either way, you fly over, and there is going to be a connection. There's not a nonstop
Okay.
from SFO into Florence.
Good to know. Thank you very much. I also want to say we're going to cover the transfers from the chamber. For those that have traveled before, you have a friend drop you off, and you're with us until you come back. And that's whether you're on the pre-trip or the post-trip, which is nice. So right here, yep, you have somebody drop you off. Don't bring your car, and we'll take care of the rest. We want to make it as easy as possible. Okay, any other questions in the auditorium? Let's just go around in the back first. Yeah.
So the pre and post trip to motor carrier from the chamber would also apply?
That's correct. Yeah.
On the pre and post trips, the single supplement, does it cover that, or is there a separate?
Ooh, good question for Chris. So does the single supplement, the 700 for the main trip, carry on to the pre or post, or is there an additional single supplement to those additional charges?
No, sir. Yeah, there would be an additional single supplement to either one, and I believe it's $300
Okay.
for the single supplement
Per segment?
Correct.
Okay.
For one, yeah, yes, sir.
Gosh, great question. Boy, winner in the back there. Okay, we had a couple of other questions right here.
How many hours does it take to fly from San Francisco to Florence?
Yeah, the whole kit and caboodle from San Francisco, including the connection to Florence, approximately, Chris, how long is that travel going to take?
Oh, boy. Boy, don't hold me to this, okay? But I would say maybe including the layover and everything, you might be looking at like 15 or 14 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say 14. Yeah. Yeah. About 14. Yeah. Yeah. I know, something to bring an iPad. Okay. Another question. Hang on. We had Eric, but let's go over here and then we'll go back to Eric. Yeah. Absolutely. If you were not refunded, we have to look at what the carrier was. If it was with Chamber Discoveries, yeah, send me an email. They've been really good. I've had to process like 5 or 6 of those. Some people wanted refunds and we had to go through everything, but absolutely, that's great. So thank you, Susan. Okay, we had Eric in the back, and then maybe Elizabeth has another question, then we can go online. Eric?
The post trip from Venice, out of the airport, correct?
Yeah, so the return from Venice after the post trip, would the return originate at Marco Polo in Venice, Chris, or would you take a bus?
No, you would fly home from Venice.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Go ahead, Eric.
So, there's a lot of One smaller layover.
Of course, right? Yeah, short, manageable layovers, and that's the benefit of not only traveling in a group, but planning the travel this early. Airlines love groups like this. Hotels love groups like this. It's the people that say 3 weeks, prior to Christmas that they're going to go visit their loved ones, and you have limited availability. The good news is we're going to get the best hotels, the best travel, the best time frames. That's why we have Chris. They have a terrific reputation, the best in the industry, right at this point. So, okay, Eric, did you have a follow up or? Yeah, please.
Day 5 to the coast there, and then also on the one to Sienna. What is those range?
Optional trips, Chris. Pricing, the range, say to the coast or to Sienna.
Sure, here, let's just, instead of giving a range, let's just all scroll down and we can all look at it together.
Oh,
Is-
okay. You
is
could
mine-
share screen. It is online, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Okay, Chiquitera, Chiquitera is $149. Sienna looks like 119.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be some minimum people or?
Gosh, Chris, do you remember the minimum number for a tour? Is it 3?
Minimum number for a tour? I guess I don't understand.
Like, if we have, how many people do we need to want to go on the Cinque Terre, tour to qualify for a group?
I think I think it's 10.
Okay.
But either way, like I said, Steve, there's going to be other chambers that y'all could be traveling with. So I shouldn't, or I shouldn't say you guys shouldn't worry about those minimums not being there.
We
Because
appreciate that.
yeah, there's going to be other folks that are going to be signing up from other chambers. So
That's another benefit to chamber discoveries. Like, they work with a lot of chambers, and Chris and I have talked about this and that whole partnering so we can be able to make it happen. Thank you. Okay, so let's keep going in the auditorium. I want to make sure we get our online people and stay on time. So we're getting near the end. Sure, go ahead. Your name and yeah, Esther.
On the little side trip, will we have a guide with us?
Oh, excellent question. So Chris, just speak to that as to a guide on the tours, but also during the trip. This is another real positive that yeah.
yeah, so what's going to happen is everyone, first of all, is going to get what's called what's everybody's going to get little earpieces, and we call it a little whisper system. But what that means is you all have little earbuds, and your tour guide is going to have a microphone that they're talking into. And so you could be, 100 feet away from your tour guide, and you're going to hear them like you were standing right next to her. And so y'all don't have to, it isn't like, you're going to be able to hear your tour guide all the time. In addition to that, yes, your tour guide's going to be with you every day. And in addition to that, there'll be some days that you're going to have 2 tour guides with you. Meaning like your tour manager is going to be with you, and there's a local guide that might meet you there in the city, for example. So that, yes, to answer your question, every day you're going to be with the tour guide when you're going on any one of the optional tours or the included tours.
Great. I want to keep us on time, so I'm going to go online. I see Teresa Wright's hand up. Teresa, good to see you. Hope to travel with you. Go ahead and share your question real loud.
Okay. Hi, Steve. Thank you so much. Chris, I had a question for you regarding Cinque Terre.
Yes, ma'am.
Since those are cliffside villages, towns, if you will, are there limitations as to where the bus will drop you off? And then if we're exploring, can you talk about what the rating of the walk around the villages are? Are we talking an easy pace walk, moderate, strenuous? What are your thoughts?
Boy, that's a great question, and it's always the hardest, right? Because that's a kind of an opinion question. Um, but okay, so first of all, let's just kind of talk just yes, you're right. There are it's a rocky and kind of a rugged coastline. And a lot of the access to the water will only be by the little harbors. You know, there aren't going to be any like sandy beaches or stuff like that. Um, there the this is definitely a day that you want to wear comfortable shoes. If I was going to rate it from like a 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest and 1 being the easiest, maybe a 4. And only because you do have to your point, hilly terrain. I mean, when you walk down to the harbor on some of those on a couple of those towns, that little street going down to the harbor can be kind of steep. And so not to discourage anyone, but just to know that there will be a fair amount of walking. And if I would rate it, I would say that and probably Florence are going to be the 2 days that you're going to be doing the most amount of walking, and I would say strenuous. I want to point out too that a lot of the walking where you're going, both in Cinque Terre but also in Florence and these other places, are going to be over cobblestone streets and often pavered sidewalks and things. So a lot, it's not really smooth. There's going to be a lot of crevices and bumps and stuff. So again, just comfortable shoes is a must. But
Thank you. I want to keep us on time. And
sorry, that was-
Teresa, did you have another question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. I see Marcia Kelly, and then I think that's our last question, so we can break and visit. There's
okay.
still at least 2 unopened bottles of wine, so you guys have some work to do. Okay, Marcia, you're live.
Yes, and you may have given this number before, but how many people do we expect on the main group, on the main trip?
For 40, which is, about a bus. So we might have a little more, we might have a little bit of less. So hopefully everybody's ready to go. Bring a friend, a grandchild, a sister you may have lost touch with and didn't want to hang out with much in your adolescence, whatever it is, and one other thing I would say for those that went to Australia and Fiji, I was able to independently set up some really cool visits with local chambers of commerce and local city government. So I'm going to do that again. It'll be kind of I don't want to say last minute, but something like, hey, does anybody here want to go meet the mayor of Siena? And most people will be like, no, thank you. But for those that are like, cool, I want to see his office and find out what makes him tick, you can come with me. So I'll throw that out there. I'll probably have some fun working with Chris on a couple of things there. But given that's the end of our questions, I just, really kind of want to bring this to a close because I want to make sure we're on time and say that this is such a terrific thing. It really is. We have a beautiful community. Many of us have had pizza or eaten at Gino's or, made pasta. And this is a way to discover a different part of the world that, has a lot of history, a ton of culture. It's a safe and affordable way to make new friends. There's a lot of us that, we don't even know how we might be connected yet, which is just so cool. That magical part of the community is neat. Chris has just been a great partner. He's been so responsive. So for folks that have questions about unique additional stay or a departing city or something like that, he's been very responsive. Obviously on the way out, there's additional brochures if you want to take one. There's additional flyers if you want to take one and share. We might be booking people all the way up till September, but the reality of it is the earlier you commit, the better price. And as a Chamber of Commerce, we're doing a lot of cool stuff. You're all invited to our mixers and our events. We also have a wonderful business journal that comes out every month. It's available on our website for free. I have copies here. It's 24 pages. And next month, we're coming out with a visitor's guide that's going to be 72 pages with historical stuff on the valley and little profiles about Chular and Greenfield and plenty of other neat stuff. So it's just been a pleasure to organize this. Maybe there's any questions or further visiting people are interested in, you can see me afterwards, but we'll stop the recording for those that stuck with it and watched it this long and just say thank you. So let's give Chris another round of applause and say yay team.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording. And for those of you that are